I'm Roanne DeStito, Commissioner of OGS. What I'd like to do first is just go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves, so everyone in the room and our viewers know who's here. This is the, let me just say that this is the third progress report on green procurement and agency sustainability. It covers fiscal years 2012-13 and 13-14. So we will give the progress report for Executive Orders 4 and 18, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yep. So I'm going to go to my left and ask Beth to introduce
I'm Beth
herself.
Muir. I'm the Special Assistant for Pollution Prevention and Green Procurement at the Department of Environmental Conservation, and I am my Commissioner's designee to co-chair this interagency committee on sustainability and green procurement. And he can't be here today. He's doing a lot of Earth Day events, but he wishes us well.
Yes, it's great to be here on Earth Day. Darren?
Oh, thank you. I'm Darren DeRocha in Council's office at OGS, and I co-chair the procurement subcommittee with Beth Muir and help out on the drafting of the report and wherever else I can.
Mark Reese, Department of Transportation. I'm the Facilities Director for Administration, representing Commissioner McDonald.
Great.
I'm Tricia Driscoll with Empire State Development, and I'm with the Environmental Services Unit.
I'm Kathy Macri. I'm with New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. I'm also chair of the training subcommittee for EO4.
I'm Heather Saunders from NYSERDA, and I'm also our commissioner, our CEO designee, and that's John Rhodes.
Jody Smits-Anderson. I'm the Director of Sustainability Programs at DASNY. I'm President Paul Williams designee for Executive Order number 4 and the chairman of the subcommittee of Sustainability Coordinators.
I'm Lisa Brooks. I'm the designee for the Budget Division and an Associate Functions Examiner for all the environmental agencies.
Welcome, everyone. And before we get into the agenda, I just want to say that we've experienced that, and our experience has demonstrated that greening the way New York does business, whether it's the way we procure our products for cleaning, has really significantly enhanced our environment and our quality of life, while we have been able to save taxpayers money and increase our efficiency and reduce waste. So we feel that this has been a win-win situation for not only our state agencies, but for the people that we represent. So I know my experience at OGS has been very positive as far as our green procurement. And I would like to introduce people from OGS. Ann Phillips is one of our attorneys, one of our counsels, works with procurement, is a wealth of knowledge in the procurement area. Behind her is Sue Filburn, who is my deputy procurement officer for OGS, and Bill Convoy is another counsel, brand new to the counsel's office at OGS, and Ashley McCluskey is my assistant. We have all worked together on this report. Of course, Darren has done the bulk of the work on this, and I want to thank Darren for all of it. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your contribution to this report, and I'm very proud of it. So I'm proud of all the work that you've done. So Beth, do you want to start or say anything?
I actually have a lot of little spaces in here where I'm going to thank
Comment?
Yes,
okay.
and comments.
All right. Well, then we'll just get to the
subcommittee.
subcommittee updates then, and we'll call on Kathy McCree for training, please.
So the training subcommittee really draws upon almost everybody involved in EO4, but in particular NYSERDA's designee, and DASNY, and some of our other partner agencies. And so we have been having a lot of back and forth with some of the sustainability coordinators to help them answer questions throughout the year on various topics. And so that's a very common thing that we work on, but we also last year worked very closely with OGS and the Procurement Council to incorporate green purchasing into the New York State procurement guidelines, which was re-released last May, and now green purchasing is incorporated as a best management practice for all purchasing activities. And we're very pleased that that is now in the guidance that's used by all of the purchasing agents and vendors throughout New York State. And we also work closely with OGS on the New York State Purchasing Forum. And last year we provided a presentation to vendors for the first time, and also another presentation aimed at sustainability coordinators and purchasing agents. And this year, we will, instead of providing presentations to the sustainability coordinators and purchasing agents, we'll be hosting a booth in the agency area of the concourse, and we'll have a display on the successes of state agencies, and we have a lot of great successes to share with some photographs. And we're also developing tip sheets and fact sheets to explain those successes, to both brag about them and to encourage others in other agencies to build upon them in their locations as well. We'll also be, Beth in particular, Beth Meir, will be participating in a new panel that OGS has developed for the purchasing forum for vendors that will take place the day before the main forum. And I think that will be very interesting. The panel is about, I'm not going to get the term correct, but it's about preferable purchasing practices, including many other things as well as green purchasing, excuse me. So for this upcoming year, we're also working on outreach to sustainability coordinators and their green teams and purchasing agents on the contracts that OGS is developing, in particular the recycling and waste contract. And we'll be working on some more outreach for sustainability and green purchasing for all state employees, and green cleaning. And we have been finding and working with DEC on waste audits that some of the agencies are finding it difficult to maintain the recycling rates that we've had, and we feel that training is a constant need to train, to remind employees and to remind staff and cleaning staff to keep working on maintaining and improving upon the recycling and waste reduction goals that we have in place for EO4. So I look forward to continuing to work with all of our partners and all of the other agencies. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I just want to comment what a success it is to get that language into the procurement guidelines, and then really want to thank your agency, Roanne, and the leadership you've shown to get the word out about green procurement into a mainstream document like that. I think that was very important, and Kathy did a great job of working with the Procurement Council to get that done. So, congratulations, Kathy.
It was a great team effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. So Deb Jackson on reporting, is Deb?
Oh, I don't know if Deb is here actually. Oh, I can do a quick.
You can do a quick?
Yeah, I can do
Okay,
a quick one,
thanks,
Deb.
Beth.
The work that Deb does every year, and it's very important, is to get the Survey Monkey and the survey that we do out to all the agencies every year, and then follow up. Everyone around this table actually help follow up with agencies to get them to participate and report. This year, we're going to sit down probably in the next month, within the next month, and just tweak any kind of problems that came up when we actually write the report. We look at what the answers are. And Deb does a great job of getting that information out to the agencies, answering their questions. And the other thing that that Deb's team does, Gary Feinland is very active in this on the solid waste side, is to cleanse the data. If he looks at what the data was sent in from the agencies, he'll check and see, okay, that looks like a really high number, that doesn't look right. Maybe you juxtapose, that happens too. People put the wrong number in the wrong column. Especially been difficult to sort out the full-time employee data with the waste generation data, which seems to be much more meaningful when it's really just applied per agency. You can't really aggregate it, as we've turned out. And then on the OGS does a lot of work with cleansing the data for the paper use. And so Darren and and folks that you might want to mention, Darren, work on that too.
Yeah, big thanks to Richard Wall and his team.
Yep.
They help us do that.
Yep. So I'm very, very happy actually with the level of reporting participation we've had, and I think we want to increase it even more next year and, you know, tweak the report a little bit. But we did send out a shorter form this last year that people seem to like for very small agencies and a number of other things. So it's good work on the reporting committee's part.
The easier we make it, I think the more information we'll get.
Right,
That's-
the more
Yeah,
participation.
more
yeah.
participation. So I'll just keep you going under procurement. Beth, you
Sure.
were gonna make,
Yes, we've had a great year this year. I just want to highlight some of the things we've done. A little more than a year ago, we began the director of procurement and staff from procurement services from NICEPRO and DEC and, you know, key people who are interested in a certain issue began meeting once a month, like a various. We didn't have an agenda. We just knew we needed to talk to each other, and that's been really effective, I think, in driving forward the conversation on these things. One of the other things we did in the last year and a half is we decided to switch our focus a little bit from developing specifications to focusing on contracts. And it's been a highly successful year for issuing green contracts. We issued an all-green, environmentally preferable cleaning product contract with a number of other New England states that I'm extremely proud of. It was issued on March 15th. The NICEPRO team was fabulous on that. Cynthia Miner was really involved. I was very grateful for the work she was doing. OGS was very gracious in allowing me to participate on the standard setting side. It was a great process. We've issued a number of contracts and contract piggybacks where the whole contract isn't green, but we've took a lot of effort in identifying those products that satisfy the EO4 specifications, for example, on flooring and carpeting. And Todd Gardner, who's here today, did a lot of great work on those contracts, carpeting and lamps, identifying what's green on contract. And then what I kind of think of as the crowning glory of the year, we issued a new trash removal contract, which now includes recycling services. Todd was also the lead on that, and his team. We're very grateful to that. It has 12 lots, I hope I get this right, for recycling. All different flavors, composting, it has training, it has help with tracking of the waste, something that we've all known has been a problem for folks. So I'm super proud of these contracts. The cleaning contract too, I should mention, not only is it all green, but it also includes training, required elements of training, and you can also purchase extra training if you want it, has tracking in it, and those are just super well done contracts that I'm looking forward to seeing how they work in the next year. In addition to that, we also were developing specs all along, so the specs that we're finalizing today, the ones that we're going to be considering later. I'm very proud of the teams that have put those together, and we can talk about those when they're done. I do want to thank Roanne and her team on procurement, because without the support of NICEPRO and the really enthusiastic embrace of this, I don't think we would have had these successes. I want to thank Sergio Panecki. I know he's left us, but he brought us a lot of energy. Don Green, who's going to be leaving us
yes,
in June.
please don't remind me.
And he's not, I don't think he's here today.
No,
but,
Don's out.
yes,
Susan is here,
Don
yeah.
has been amazing, and Sue, thank you for your team. And of course Darren, who helps me chair the subcommittee. And I want to also just welcome and encourage Todd, who I know is stepping into some of the role that Don had before. So it's been a great effort, and I'm very proud of what we've done this year.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to move to coordination. We're adding one subcategory to this subcommittee update, and that's coordination by Jody Smits-Anderson. Jody?
Yes, I'm a chair of the subcommittee for sustainability coordinators, and really what this group is, it's predominantly keeping the communications open about the successes that we have experienced, sharing information about the work of other states and other places that can inform the work for each of the agencies. In some cases, the sustainability coordinators immediately share that with their staff in general, and in some cases they pull bits and pieces, and in some cases they don't read it at all. But this is a weekly information bulletin that comes out that I put together typically on Mondays. So far we've done some sharing of successes, especially from New York Parks, because they've done a lot of training on photovoltaic installation with their own staff and had success with several projects. The University of Buffalo was featured at one point. What we're hoping is that more agencies will send information to me about successes so they can be shared more broadly throughout the state. We've also shared, when DEC published the calendars, the recycling calendars for the year. That's just a wonderful bit of information to be shared across agencies, and they can access those calendars. Again, it's informal communications, but it also brings to light the things that can benefit all of New York State that are grounded in sustainability, things like the Environmental Excellence Awards. So information was pushed out about registering for that or submitting good projects to that environmental excellence process. That was pushed out 4 or 5 times before the awards ceremony. Green Your Commute Day is now a yearly event that's happening this year on May 15th. That's also an event that can engage every single agency around the state. So that information has gone out. And already mentioned was the environmentally preferable cleaning contract. That contract announcement, once it was awarded, that went out immediately to the Green Bulletin and hopefully was taken up by some of the agencies statewide. So anytime there is a way to reinforce information by a kind of grassroots, less formal communication, that's what this Green Bulletin really is all about. The sustainability coordinators also often reach out to the Green Bulletin email, which is sustainability@dasny.org, to ask questions or to find resources. The most recent one is courts wanted to educate their staff about recycling. So I reached out to Deb Jackson. Deb is now speaking at courts this Friday to their office in New York City via webinar, and also in their office and agency building 3, I think. So that's the
great.
sustainability coordinators.
That's great. Sharing of information is key, right? Okay. Review of the third progress report, and I will turn that over to Beth.
Okay, I'm just gonna hit a couple highlights for the record of the report, and then we can discuss any comments folks have or any edits or changes. This last progress report is for fiscal years 2012-13 and 13-14, and it summarizes 6 years of data, which I'm very excited about going back. And those 6 years have seen steady progress toward the adoption of sustainable practices and green procurement by New York State government. One item is that we have decreased paper use overall since 2008-09, 59%. And in doing so, we've saved the state $27.4 million, and we are continuing to save at least a minimum of $8 million a year on paper use. Waste generation decreased 53% since fiscal year 08-09, which is an encouraging trend. This is an aggregate number, so it's not the FTE goal that we set, which is really applied to agency per agency, but it's still a good trend. This number is going to fluctuate because you get big years when they tear down a building or something like that, and that waste goes into that number. But it's still a fabulous trend. I think the next piece of data is a little more robust and exciting. Our recycling rates have done very well. So for the first year, we had a 50% recycling rate, which we were very happy. It was the first time we'd ever measured our recycling rate. We had never before measured the amount of waste we generated. So we didn't know how much we recycled. And we were recycling 50%. That was the state goal, was 50%. The last 2 fiscal years, we've recycled 71%. Very exciting, and it has a lot to do with recycling of construction and demolition debris when we do tear down those structures. The purchase of 100% post-consumer recycled content processed chlorine-free copy paper has steadily increased also from 08-09. It was about 22% of all copy paper purchased, and now it's solidly at 50%. And the purchase of janitorial paper, recycled content janitorial paper, 100% recycled, has increased from 34% to 64% of all janitorial paper purchased. In addition, under Executive Order 18, agencies have virtually eliminated the purchase of bottled water. Most authorities have followed suit, and only 6 agencies continue to use bottled water under very special circumstances. They need an exemption for that. For example, transporting detainees or transit workers in remote locations. One of the times that people have reported is a little bit hard to have to not use bottled water is an event like this. This is one of the times where some agencies are saying that they're seeing bottled water on the table. They're seeing, so I wanted really thank Darren for making sure we didn't have bottled water here today. And what folks are recommending is that in those situations to actually write into the contracts for any kind of services that there's no bottled water present, and perhaps changing a culture to having, carrying your own water bottle. So it's a tricky one. But this is one of the last times where you still see, yes, and Jody has hers on display. This is one of the last times when people really feel like they almost pay for it themselves. Sometimes they go and run out and buy some on their own dime, because the real rule is not to purchase it with agency money. So it's a little bit of a change. The other exciting thing on that was that the Office of Mental Health was saying that they had outdoor events, like running or walks or something like that. And they were starting to segue away from water bottles and toward coolers and other things. So it's those kinds of models that we get out there. It's to show people what you can do instead of using bottled waters. But it's very exciting. Overall, and we asked agencies whether they're using a certain practice all or most of the time, majority of the time, or sometimes. 89% of agencies responding, that includes the authorities, use green cleaning practices all or a majority of the time. 99% have implemented some policy to reduce energy use, so almost everybody's doing something to reduce energy. 83% use low chemical means like integrated pest management to manage indoor pests. And then a big plus and a jump was 70% report that they're using non-chemical means of managing outdoor pests all or majority of the time. And this is a jump from 43% in 2008-09 to 70% now, and I think that's a real culture change. And it's actually very important today on Earth Day. We're also very concerned about pollinators and protecting pollinators, and that practice protects pollinators, helps to protect them. 90% report that they consult the green specifications when making purchases all or a majority of the time. So people are looking at the work we do, which is great. And then very importantly, we ask them if these practices are costing money, saving money, or not affecting the bottom line. And overall, New York has not spent more on these practices. In fact, most agencies report that they reduce savings, they are saving money, they're reducing costs by reducing energy use and waste, and also getting rid of water bottles. Definitely saves you money. So in other areas, they're not necessarily saving money all the time. The majority or the plurality of agencies basically said that we weren't spending any more money, and it's always a very small percentage that report an increase in cost for any of these things. So across the board, I think we're doing very well. Also, in fiscal year 12-13, the state spent $100.8 million on the aggregate purchase of EP Gold plus 7 computers, which means they have no toxics in them. They meet all the toxics requirements of EPs. And they saved $94 million off the contract price by doing that because it was an aggregate purchase, which shows that green procurement does not necessarily cost more money. It can still save significant amounts of money. Since fiscal year 08-09, we have finalized 35 green specifications covering 76 different commodity types. And after we do the final approval today for the next 5, that will be 40 specifications that are out there on different products. So I'm very proud of that. And we have a number of specifications to look at for final approval today and some for tentative approval. And the last thing I want to mention, I've already mentioned it before, is that we issued an impressive number of contracts that have green products on them, or contracts that are entirely green this year, including recycling services, which is due out soon. And we're very excited about that and excited about going forward. So again, I want to thank Roanne and her agency for their continued leadership, Darren for helping me shepherd this report through. It's always a crunch in the last part. My authors, Deb Jackson, who's not here but chairs the reporting subcommittee, Garrett Feinland, who crunches the numbers on waste, Kathy Macri, who writes the education and the water conservation and natural resource section, Jody Smith-Anderson, who helps me do the overall tone and the challenges and opportunities. She peps me up when I write sort of geeky-like. Heather Saunders, who writes the section on energy. Brendan Woodruff, who helped with some places around the edges. And all the other staff at DUC and OGS who help. It is a big job. It's always bigger. When you get to that final thing, you're thinking, this is a lot of work. But when you look at the report and you look at the range of things we're covering, from waste reduction to water use, to water bottles, to contracts, to purchasing, It's a very ambitious report, and I'm also proud that it's at least, I think, 4 pages shorter than it was last year.
And Howard Zwickel would be very happy.
And Howard Zucker would be very proud. Thank you, Howard. So,
You
there we go.
remember him when you cut those pages, right, Karen?
That's right.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Thank you very much for all your work, because I know it's a labor of love and profession. I know that. Now we'll review the tentatively approved
Oh,
specifications.
we should probably do it, we should probably approve the report.
Oh,
and see
is
if
this?
anybody has any comments.
Do we need,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we do
We
need to
could do
approve
that,
it,
yeah.
right? Okay. Well, let me ask if there's any comments or issues or concerns? No? With no comments? We should adopt it, so everyone in favor of adopting this report today, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Okay, we've accepted the report, so Darren's happy. Okay.
Awesome.
So now we'll start the review?
Yes.
Okay. The following specifications have been posted for public comment for final approval, and this will be guided by Beth and Peter? Is
Yeah,
coming?
Peter actually
Oh, Peter
couldn't be here today, but I
okay.
have his notes.
Okay.
If we start with reusable bags, I don't know if you can bring it up, Darren. Oh, he's got it, there we go. So the reason that we edited reusable bags is actually gonna be coming up later with packaging. We added the packaging language to this. We're gonna have a generic packaging language that applies to all specifications. But because the procurement subcommittee is such a hardworking committee, once they see a specification in front of them, they cannot resist tiny tweaking. And here the tweak is actually in the 3rd line of the first paragraph. We realize that reusable bags are not always plastic. They can be made out of fabric and other kinds of things, so we took out the word plastic. And then the rest of the changes in here actually were just to clarify. There were 2 bullets. One of them was repetitive. It was just a cleanup at the bottom about the durability and strength standards. We just broke them apart. It's not a substantive change. And then the only other real substantive change is about the packaging language. So I think we're probably just going to do these one by one. The other specs on this list don't have any other changes to them, Roanne, and there were no
Okay, so-
comments received on any of them. So we could start with reusable bags. We could just get a motion to,
Okay.
yeah, if you want to handle those.
A motion to accept the specifications for reusable bags. Any comments, any questions?
I'll make the motion.
You'll make the motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Jody, second. Heather gave me the motion and Jody seconded it. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've accepted the reusable bags. And we'll move to solar thermal panel. Everyone is familiar. Does anybody want a description? Beth says there has been no added comments, correct?
Right. no
Okay,
comments
so
received.
we will accept a motion.
I'll motion.
Beth, Mark, you want to second it?
Absolutely.
Okay. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Solar thermal panel specifications have been accepted. Shower heads, would anyone like a further description? Any comments? I'll entertain a motion for accepting the approved specifications for shower heads.
I'll second it.
Kathy, or you'll
I need a
motion,
motion.
I need a
I'll
motion.
make the motion.
It's
for
Kathy's
Motion.
spec too, pardon me.
Okay, Kathy, it's your spec, you'll do the, and Jody will second it. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Shower heads is accepted. Mulch, again, any comments, any concerns? Anyone wanting to have a description? Okay, I'll need a motion.
Move on behalf of Gary Fineland, who. led this.
Okay. And
I'll
second? Heather? All in favor by indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mulch is, specifications are accepted. Pavement sealer, again, any comments, any description needed? Okay. Accept a motion to accept pavement sealer specifications.
I'll move on behalf of John Vanna and Bob Lazara, who has now retired, but moved this specification
Great,
forward.
I appreciate that. Second? Mark?
Yes.
Okay, please, all accepting it, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pavement sealer is accepted. Motion is accepted. Okay. Review, we'll move on. We're doing very well.
Doing very well.
Review of new specifications for tentative approval and posting. And again, Beth, do you want to lead this?
Yes, and
Okay.
I'm gonna ask Brendan Woodruff and Karen Engel to come up. You guys can sit right here at the table, because there's enough room.
Right.
And you can walk us through. Brendan, if you would begin with the printing, amended printing specification.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. For those that I haven't met yet, my name is Brendan Woodruff. I'm an environmental program specialist with the Department of Environmental Conservation.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm quickly going to go through some recommended changes to the printing specification. So the printing spec, as we have it written now, covers both office printing and lithographic printing. Most of it, and when we do the requirements up top, it's things like, to the maximum extent possible, looking at 100% recycled content, looking at duplex printing, stuff like that. But we also encourage two things for agencies to look for in contracts. The first is to choose a printer that is certified by either the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership or ECO logo. And the second deals with lithographic printing. And here we're asking for a series of best practices, one of which is, quote, digital on-demand printing in direct-to-plate pre-press systems. And what we've done is we're going through to make a couple technical changes to update this so as we're keeping up with the advances in technology. With the lithographic printing industry, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what this would do. First is there's traditional lithographic printing, which was used back in the day where you would develop film. You would then put the film on a plate, develop that plate, and put it into a press. There's two places where there's chemicals, water, and energy being used when you're developing the film and when you're developing the plate. What we ask for now and encourage is called computer to plate or direct to plate, and you remove the film stage. So what you've got is you've got the image goes directly from the computer to the plate, it gets developed, and then it's put in the printing press. And with this process, you still have the use of developer and chemicals there. And you're still using water, you're still using energy. So there have been some advances in technology here, and we want to keep up, and we want to encourage people who are doing lithographic printing for the state to use the best practices that are out there. And there's this new process called process-free or processless printing. And what it is you remove the processing of the plate. So you're going directly from the computer to the printing press. So you're reducing and or you're eliminating the use of chemicals, you're eliminating the use of water and energy in that process there. So Darren, if you can move down to the bottom here, we can go through, I'll very quickly go through the technical aspects of this. So what we've done here is the first thing is a technical fix. UL went through and they changed the codes for their Eco Logo certification program, so we've updated that to ensure that we have the correct one there. And the next section that we have is where we actually change the language from computer to plate technology to process free. And this is a couple bullet points down, and this is where it says maximize the use of digital on-demand printing in direct-to-plate pre-press systems using process-free or processless printing plates. And that's where we're making that technical change. We're making sure that we have the best practices in the industry there. The next section is we remove the line where agencies look for vendors that maximize the recovery of silver. This is a technical fix. Silver is used in some of these direct-to-plate systems when you're developing the plates. But we do understand that there are going to be some printers still using that older technology. They'll still be silver. So what we do is in the first line there, we put in that we want printers to avoid the use of silver halide coatings, which is what they use on the plate silver comes from. And then down below, we actually also ask for maximizing the in-process recycling and recovery of silver. So we're still asking for it there, but we're not making it a point of leaving it there. So a couple other things with this as well. The goals of doing this is making sure that we're asking for best practices in the industry. And overall, what we like to see created is a virtuous circle, where when we're putting these out there and agencies are saying, well, here's what the best practices are, we'd like to see this, and we get a printer who adopts this, and we get a potential vendor that adopts this technology. Next thing you know, the other vendors want to keep up, they want to think they have a better chance of, keeping up with what we're looking for, so you create this circle whole industry becomes much greener based on our asking for what's best practice in the industry right now. Couple other things. One of the questions would be, why don't we just require it? Right now, it's not at the 30% market share level that we generally look at to make sure that we can get multiple bids. But this will help us get there much faster by asking for this. So in conclusion, we want to make sure that we're keeping up with what the industry is doing, want to make sure we're asking for the best practices, and by adopting these simple changes here, we think that we can make a real impact on the printing industry and make it more sustainable. Thank you.
I'll just comment. I'm glad that you mentioned that we need multiple bids, and that's where we have to make sure that we don't exclude some vendors. And also, we also would like to see the natural progression of the industry actually work towards this goal instead of mandating it and getting criticism that we're putting people in business. So we want to be business friendly, but we also, again, want environmental and economic development to be together. So, and to be working together. So I think this is a great compromise. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments?
Yeah. Do we have to accept these?
Yeah. What we're doing here is we're accepting, the first round of acceptance is a tentative acceptance, and these are posted on the web. And we take them up at our next meeting.
Right.
And we finalize them. So that's what we
Okay.
did for the last set. This set is now being
Yes, I remember when we
tentatively
did that,
accepted.
okay. So would I need a motion?
I
and
think so.
Okay,
I think
so
so.
we'll go through the,
Yep.
okay, so Brendan has presented. We've had no other comments but my own. Can I have a motion to accept for tentative approval and posting?
I move to accept.
Jody, thank you. Second?
Second.
Kathy? Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's accepted. Model packaging language?
Okay, I'm going to present on behalf
Okay.
of Peter Pettit, who drafted these. I just want to clarify too, because it's the first time we've ever done anything like this. This language is going to be adopted today, and after we adopt it, it will be applied retroactively to all the specifications that we've already adopted where packaging would be used in any way. I mean, most of them actually, it's surprising if you really start thinking about it, it's still useful to have the packaging language applied to it. And this language will now be applied to all specifications going forward. And if we want to tweak packaging, we'll probably be doing it this way as a model language. It was also something that Nice Pro was interested in as using in their contract specifications, which is great. So it can be used, of course, more broadly than just the specifications that we issue, the generic green specifications. There's a few different issues touched on here. The first one is toxics. This language, by the way, a lot of this language either appears at least once in one of the specs we've already done, or pieces of it appear in different specs, and we're just trying to make all the specs look the same. The first issue is toxics. It's actually a restriction on toxics in packaging. It's statutory. It comes from New York state law, so we're not asking anything different. We're prohibiting the use of certain kinds of toxic metals in packaging in certain levels, depending on whether they're intentionally added or whether they're just incidental. That's all the statutory language. The second chunk here is a list, and we actually did discuss in the procurement subcommittee whether we can make it a hierarchy, and it didn't quite fit because they're not exactly the kind of one-step, two-step. I mean, one, you want to avoid packaging overall. So bulk is there, and the use of innovative packaging, but then there's the piece about take back, which is sort of different than all of it. Then there's the recycled content, usable, reusability, and then recyclability. So it didn't really lend itself to a hierarchy, but they're all being encouraged. And so again, bulk packaging, so you're reducing packaging, less packaging overall, innovative ways of transporting products. They don't have to have packaging perhaps. Reusable packaging, the take back of packaging, the keeping of the responsibility for the packaging with the vendor, which is product stewardship, recycled content of the packaging, and then the recyclability or the compostability of the packaging. And we all we're really excited about adding compostability because of the company EcoVated, which is a local New York State company that makes compostable packaging. So we've looked at this a bit. We really like it, and we are putting forward that this will be adopted as a generic model for all existing specifications. We've looked at the specifications that we are adopting finally today. We've added it to reusable bags. It was already present. In the form, we tweaked it tiny bit. They were almost exactly the same for solar thermal panels, shower heads, and pavement sealer. And then mulch we left alone. Peter Pettit looked at that carefully. There's a really good discussion about bulk purchase of mulch in the mulch specification, and Peter decided in the end that he would just leave that the way it is without adding this extra language. So that's what we're trying to do with packaging today.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns?
I just want to say, I think having this applied as language across the specs will make it a really nice driver for New York State and much clearer. And I think that's great.
Well, I should mention, and Peter wanted me to mention this too, is that he has actually, when he started working on this list, he looked at a whole bunch of things like this, where we've used certain things in some specs and not in others. And so he is going to be presenting to the procurement subcommittee sometime this year a model guide for developing specifications that has like generic language in it for developing model specifications. And in those places where it looks like it would be useful to try to take some of that back to the old specs, he'll bring that forward to the subcommittee one issue at a time so we can just thrash it through. Because sometimes they're easy and sometimes they're not. But it's good. The guide would have things like Energy Star, for example, or the other energies. I forget what, not the energy expert.
CCE.
Yeah, exactly. So it wouldn't say what it would be. It would just say, look at that. Like if you're looking at energy, that's something to look for. So just to mention it.
Great. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to accept the tentative approval and posting for model packaging language.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Heather, second? Jody? Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Model packaging language has been accepted and will be posted. Thank you. Wheel weights.
I'm going to do this also from Peter Pettit. The wheel weights specification is pretty simple. There's really two elements. One prohibits lead in wheel weights, and that is actually prohibited by law. So that's a statutory restriction. That's not a difficult one to do. The other language encourages the avoidance of mercury. Believe it or not, there's still wheel weights that use mercury. Mercury is, of course, with environmental impacts of fish, and so it's amazing to me that it's still being used, but there you go. So we're encouraging the avoidance of mercury, and we're encouraging recycled content in wheel weights if it's there. We have run this by our colleague Mark Reese at DOT, who has been gracious enough to approve it, and with Christian Jackstad at OGS, who runs the fleet at OGS, and so we're moving it forward, and the procurement subcommittee is recommending it to us today.
Okay. Comments? Questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept wheel weights for tentative approval and posting.
I'll do it.
Okay, Mark, thank
All
you.
right, all right.
Jody, thank you. I have a second with Jody. Will everyone who accepts this indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Wheel weights will be tentatively approval and posted. Sustainable landscaping.
That would be Karen Engel. I'll just do a little brief introduction.
Okay.
Karen is our green infrastructure coordinator, for DEC, and she spearheaded this effort with a very large multidisciplinary team that included folks from DOT and OGS and SUNY ESF and Cornell, and I'm sure you can fill that in. You can add to that, but I'm just proud that she managed such a complex group of people, and they worked on this for more than 2 years. So I'm very proud of this spec.
Yeah, thanks. I had a fantastic group. Also DOS, SUNY Construction. What else did I forget?
EFC.
EFC, yes. Thank you, Kathy. NYSERDA. Yeah, Karen Engel, Green Infrastructure Coordinator. for DEC, and the sustainable landscaping guidance, it does not fit the mold of the other, it's not a procurement specification, but it does fall under the umbrella of the EO4 direction to implement sustainability initiatives. And this is a very broad, we hope visionary initiative, recognizing that natural systems, plants and natural systems perform critical life-sustaining functions. We can think of them as Earth's life support system. We also realize that when we develop and construct and pave, we're destroying those systems. And at some point, there's going to be a critical mass of loss of those systems. But in the meantime, what we should be thinking about is, as much as possible, to reduce our footprint, because, you know, there's a certain amount of the development that actually has a designated use, and then typically in the land around it, there'll be an area where there isn't necessarily a designated use, but we still maintain it in some fashion. And I read that actually lawns came about as a display of an owner's wealth so great that the area could be maintained in a way that required a lot of work and provided absolutely no benefit. It was kind of a show of arrogance. And unfortunately, the way we tend to landscape, the cultural expectation, carries some of that in it. We think of landscaping typically as an area that's very highly maintained, that's very energy intensive, very maintenance intensive, typically exotic species that would not normally grow there. Basically, if we didn't buy it and if we didn't plant it and we don't maintain it, then it doesn't belong there. It's kind of it's very much working against nature rather than with it. So this is kind of a cultural norm that we would like to change by setting a better example with state property. The state itself has like 31 million acres. We were trying to get an actual number of how many acres that the state owns or manages, and that was pretty hard to find. Now, obviously, this would not apply to the Adirondack Forest Preserve, you know, anything that is covered by statute. It wouldn't apply to like national or state forests or wildlife management areas where there's maintenance that's required for designated function, but it would apply to other types of state lands. So about the same time we were working on developing this, the federal government came up with their own guidance for federal agencies, sustainable practices for design landscapes, and they did, we think, an excellent job, very comprehensive job of covering all the bases in terms of what you should consider in landscaping more beneficially. So we started with this document as a basis, using the points from it and then adding to it to make it more New York specific. And so what we, in our guidance, we were very careful on two critical points. We wanted to be as specific as we possibly could while still making it applicable to all state lands that it should be applicable to. We didn't want to inadvertently exclude something or inadvertently set up an expectation that was unrealistic for a specific set of circumstances. So another thing that you really won't find in here, there are very few absolutes. There are very few like must or nevers. In fact, the only ones I think are the ones that are required by law anyhow. For example, the New York State Stormwater Management Design Manual, the invasive species list, you know, those things are requirements based in statute. But for the rest, the guidance is mostly, it's a direction. It's a, you know, it's trying to establish a vision for this is how the direction we should be moving. So to whatever extent it's applicable to your site, you know, these are the things you should think about. And we covered the bases of soil, vegetation, design, and everything from design through construction, through maintenance practices. We also encourage looking at a specific site, not in strict terms of just what's beneficial on the site itself, but as to how the site could benefit the greater landscape, how it could benefit surrounding watershed management plan, for example. Like one of the points that we would encourage is that complete on-site water retention. No more stormwater runoff. Water should be viewed as a valuable resource, not a waste product. So this is another thing that has to change. Okay. Given that it's not site-specific, it's going to, the devil will be in the details to an extent. We envision that site plans will have to be developed that are specific to a site. Another thing that we encourage in this is that in any kind of cost-benefit analysis, you know, it's typical to look at the upfront cost of something, and that will be as far as it goes. And thinking in terms of sustainability, we need to start thinking about the benefits that are less easy to quantify, the environmental benefits, which in some cases actually now can be quantified, like how many parts per million tree can remove particulate matter from the air and so forth. But we need to start thinking more holistically, and when we are doing a cost-benefit analysis, it's not all just based on the initial cost of an installation. You have to look at the life cycle benefits and the whole host of benefits. I think we also wanted, we also addressed, given climate change and storm surge events, landscaping can play a role. There's basically nothing that works better at the human-water interface in terms of protecting water from land and the reverse of protecting land from water than natural systems. And to the extent that state properties are in floodplains or in coastal areas, landscaping should start to take those things into consideration. But I think one of the #1 things is that, you know, there's, to the extent that there is, that state land is a significant percentage of acreage, we really need to try to have an impact on private property owners, and the best way we can do that is to set a good example. Natural systems, natural landscaping can be every bit as beautiful as exotic ornamentals. And, and pollinators. We also addressed, in keeping with the pollinator initiative, the federal guidance had actually already come up with their own addendum supporting the health of honeybees and other pollinators. So we recommend the use of pollinator-friendly plants as appropriate. We realize you don't want to encourage bees in playgrounds, but there are other pollinators besides bees, and there's a well-planned landscape. There's a lot of places where you could do a lot more for pollinators. We discourage any sort of chemical use to the maximum extent possible. Soil conservation, water conservation. Do you think of anything else? One of my committee members right back there from the Department of State. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you,
Very
Karen.
good.
Any questions for Karen? Comments? Okay. We'll entertain a motion to accept sustainable landscaping for tentative approval and posting.
I'll move.
Okay, Beth?
I'll second.
Okay, Heather, thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The sustainable landscaping has been approved and will be posted. So that concludes the action items that we have at this meeting, and I think we can conclude, unless someone wants to have any comments. Beth?
I just
Darren?
want to say again, I think I just feel like we've had a really good year, and I want to thank all of the team, especially our committee chairs, Kathy, Jody, Deb, she's not here at the very moment, but and Darren helping me, and Ann Phillips in her role with the subcommittee, and you, Roanne, and especially the staff of NICE and OGS and DEC who've worked so hard on these issues. So I feel really great about what we've done this year.
Well, thank you. It's been a great partnership with DEC and all of the agencies that are part of this organization and this work product, because I think we've come a long way. So I want to thank Brendan and Karen and everyone who has contributed to all of these postings and the language. I think we really are moving in the right direction and moving forward. So thank you. Darren, again, thank you for all of your legwork and what you've contributed to this report. Ann Phillips also, I know that Ann always contributes her knowledge. So without further ado, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. So we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Till the
you.
next time.